What's up, everybody? Give me a second. Whew, I was gonna be on earlier, but I got totally sidetracked creating my new website on my theory, and I had to create the entire website. I had to create a video that promotes it, and I created a long version of the video and a short version of the video. So I was basically doing that for about 4 to 6 hours straight, and I basically just got done. Um, so I figure I am going to go over this briefly. Keyword is briefly, because if I go all the way through this website, it will actually take like an hour or two. So I'm gonna just go over it fairly quickly, like less than 20 minutes. I'm gonna drop you guys some links in the chat real quick. And also, here is a link to my Facebook post because I shared it on my Facebook. And rather than going over the entire post, just go read it yourself. So here's a link to that. Feel free to share it if you want to. So it took me so long. It took me about 6 hours because I had to create all the images. I had to put the whole theory into words, and then I created the promotional videos, and they are uploaded on YouTube, and they are linked on the website also. But I created a short version of it too. So anyway, I got all that up and running, and here we go. Let me begin. All right, before we get into Overwatch, I got to show you guys what I've been cooking. I spent way too much time arguing with the universe and somehow ended up building an entire theory about whether God must exist. So instead of me explaining the whole thing, I'm going to let the website cook your noodle for a few minutes. So on the actual website, I basically put a voiceover introduction that kind of summarizes and goes over the website. Okay, so let's begin. I have outdone myself. Hold on, I am looking at I'm looking at a Facebook post that it's a post posted by Mathematics Learning, and it says, in mathematics, the art of asking question is more valuable than solving problems. Greg George Cantor, 1845 through 1918. I need to add this to the website really quick. I'm gonna do that. But before I do that, actually, I can actually add it really quickly. Isn't it so weird that all this happened? Right as soon as I crack the secret to the universe, I'm seeing all these posts that are basically supporting my theory. It's like the universe is speaking. All right, I'm adding this quote to the website. It is a perfect little quote to add. Let's see. D. One second, everybody. It will literally take less than 1 or 2 minutes to add this to the website. Here's a link to the YouTube video on the main website. Actually, I will play the YouTube video for you. Okay, give me 1 second. I just want to add this one little thing to the website. It will be a fine little addition to the website. It's a masterpiece. I don't know why science hasn't found me yet. I've been trying to tell everybody I'm right here. I'm right here. It's like they still don't even notice I'm like right here. I'm the man that basically answered the question everyone's been trying to answer for like the entire since the beginning of human civilization, and I've been like trying to explain it to everybody, and it's like, okay, I am going to make it an official website and explain this paradox once and for all. Dimension Zero was a little bit different. It wasn't exactly the same thing. Although they are kind of similar, it's just that the divine deduction theory is much more universally groundbreaking than my Dimension Zero. Give me 1 second. It is almost done. The quote belongs at the opening of the theory. All right, it's putting this quote at the opening of the theory. Almost done. Patience is a virtue. Young Mystic, it has been accomplished. I am uploading it right now. And I am about to bake your noodle. Prepare to have your noodle absolutely fried, absolutely baked to the bone. absolutely baked to the bone. You are about to get your noodle absolutely fried. All right, here we go, guys. I'm going to go over the website right now. Let me refresh the website. Refresh. Bam. All right, I present to you the greatest work known to human civilization, the Holy Grail, the smoking gun, the reason the coin flip is about to. I am the reason the coin flip is getting ready to land, and I just gave you guys the answers on the test, and you guys, I hope you all pass, because I basically gave you a cheat code to receive more. Oh man, give me a second. Fuck, I'll get it later. I just knocked something over on my desk. I just gave to you guys the greatest solution that has ever been contemplated to humanity. Humanity is barely ready. I am part of the reason God is getting ready to finally reveal himself. God is getting ready to reveal himself because I have now presented humanity with the solution. It is known as the divine deduction theory, a rational, comprehensive framework for discovering what the total evidence points towards. Truth is not found by one piece of evidence, but by the direction of all the evidence combined. I'm not here to prove God with the decimal. I'm here to show you where the arrow points. The divine deduction theory, a mathematical deductive framework for asking what reality points towards. Did God create everything? Instead of beginning with belief or disbelief, divine deduction theory asks a different question. What does the total evidence point towards? Did God create everything? The universe already knows the answer. We're still trying to discover it. A 2-minute introduction to the divine deduction theory. Before diving into the full theory, watch this short introduction to the question behind divine deduction. I'm not here to prove God with a decimal. I'm here to show where the arrow points. So we're going to watch this video. This is on YouTube.
What if one of humanity's oldest questions could be approached in a completely different way? Did God create everything? For thousands of years, we've debated that question through religion, philosophy, and science. But what if instead of choosing what we want to believe, we compared the competing explanations for reality?
Hold on, I'm going to start this over.
Question. What if one of humanity's oldest questions could be approached in a completely different way? Did God create everything? For thousands of years, we've debated that question through religion, philosophy, and science. But what if instead of choosing what we want to believe, we compared the competing explanations for reality and asked one simple question? What does the total evidence point towards? Think of the ultimate question as a cosmic coin. On one side, God, eternal intelligence. On the other, no ultimate intelligence. The truth itself isn't waiting for humanity to decide. Reality already contains the answer. We're the ones still trying to discover it. We can observe, we can reason, we can calculate, we can challenge assumptions, and as new evidence appears, we can update what we believe. The coin represents our uncertainty, not realities. Think of the ultimate question as a cosmic coin. On one side, God, eternal intelligence. On the other, no ultimate intelligence. The truth itself isn't waiting for humanity to decide. Reality already contains the answer. We're the ones still trying to discover it. We can observe, we can reason, we can calculate, we can challenge assumptions, and as new evidence appears, we can update what we believe. The coin represents our uncertainty, not realities. After following this framework as far as I currently can, I've made my call. But I don't want you to simply take my word for it. Challenge it. Challenge the assumptions. Challenge the reasoning. Challenge the model. Try to break it. Then decide for yourself. The complete divine deduction theory is available now. The universe holds the answer. The cosmic coin is still spinning for us. I've made my call. Now call it in the air.
Once you fully understand the theory, that the whole call it in the air will make a lot more sense. All right, let's continue. What does it point towards? Begin the narrated journey. Now, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to play the voiceover narration and just scroll through the website quickly. And if you guys want to check out the website, go check it out on your own time. So let's just start it. Here we go.
Welcome to the divine deduction theory. Before we begin, forget for a moment what you've been told to believe about the ultimate origin of reality. Don't begin by assuming God exists, and don't begin by assuming God does not exist. Begin with something far simpler. Something exists. You exist. The universe exists. Reality exists. And from that single observation comes perhaps the greatest question humanity has ever asked. Why does anything exist at all? The divine deduction theory is an attempt to approach that mystery from a different direction.
Oops. I was just seeing if it actually... It changed the website. Let me go back.
I'm not here to prove God with a decimal. I'm here to show where the arrow points. So instead of beginning with an answer, we begin with the possibilities. Perhaps reality ultimately originates from an eternal intelligence. Perhaps the foundation of reality is eternal, but entirely impersonal. Perhaps reality is infinite or self-contained, with no ultimate beginning. Perhaps something somehow emerged from absolute nothing. Perhaps our reality is derived from another reality, such as a simulation. Or perhaps the true explanation is something humanity has not even discovered yet. Don't choose one yet. Let them compete, because if we want to know which explanation is strongest, we should ask what each hypothesis can actually explain. And one of the first problems we encounter is what I call the nothingness barrier. Imagine absolute nothing, not empty space, not darkness, not a quantum vacuum. Absolute nothing. No space, no time, no matter, no energy, no physical laws, no probability, no information, no mechanism, no cause, nothing. Now ask the question, how does that state become something? If there's a law allowing nothing to transform into something, then a law already exists. If there's a probability of something occurring, probability already exists. If there is a mechanism responsible for the transition, a mechanism already exists. And if there is a cause, then something already exists to cause it. That creates a profound problem. How can absolute nothing produce something if absolute nothing contains no properties capable of producing anything? This doesn't mathematically prove that absolute nothing never existed, but it gives us a powerful reason to question whether nothingness could ever have been the ultimate foundation of reality. And that leads to another possibility. Perhaps something was always here. Now the question changes. Instead of asking how something came from nothing, we ask, what was always here? Was reality's eternal foundation an impersonal structure, an infinite physical reality, something completely unknown? Or was the ultimate foundation intelligent? Now we need evidence. Look at the universe around us. Reality exhibits extraordinary mathematical order. Nature behaves according to consistent relationships that mathematics can describe with remarkable precision. Our universe also possesses physical conditions capable of producing stars, planets, chemistry, complexity, and eventually life. And then something even stranger appears. Consciousness. Matter organized itself somehow into beings capable of experiencing reality, thinking about reality, doing mathematics, questioning their own existence, and eventually asking why any of this exists in the first place. These observations do not automatically prove God. That would be too easy. Instead, DDT asks a harder question. Which competing explanation makes the greatest amount of what we observe coherent? This is where Bayesian reasoning becomes useful. The basic idea is surprisingly simple. Begin with competing hypotheses, examine evidence, ask how expected that evidence would be under each hypothesis. Then update the relative strength of those hypotheses. New evidence can strengthen an explanation, it can weaken one, or it can leave the question essentially unchanged. And importantly, the numbers used in the current DDT model are illustrative. They are not empirical measurements of God's probability. Challenge them. Change the assumptions. Change the weights. Recalculate the model. If changing reasonable assumptions changes the conclusion, that matters. And if a conclusion remains strong across many reasonable assumptions, that matters too. Think of every meaningful observation as an arrow. Mathematical order is an arrow. Fine-tuning and habitability are arrows. Consciousness is an arrow. Necessary existence is an arrow. Explanatory scope is an arrow. Parsimony is an arrow. Physics is an arrow. And unknown possibilities must remain in the model as well. Some arrows may point in different directions. Some may be weak, some may be strong. Some may eventually turn out to have been pointing the wrong way entirely. The purpose of divine deduction is not to find the arrow we like the most. It is to ask, when all of the arrows are considered together, what does it point towards? And that brings us to the central metaphor of the theory, the cosmic coin. Imagine the ultimate question represented by a coin suspended above humanity. On one side, God, eternal intelligence. On the other, no ultimate intelligence. But there is something important about this coin. Reality is not waiting for us to decide which side is true. The truth is already true. Either an ultimate intelligence exists, or it does not. Reality already contains the answer. We are the ones who haven't seen the coin land. So we observe its trajectory, we gather evidence, we reason, we calculate, we challenge assumptions, and when we learn something new, we update. The cosmic coin represents our uncertainty, not realities. And this leads to what may be my favorite way of visualizing the entire theory. The universe holds the answer. Imagine the mystery of existence locked within the grasp of reality itself. Every galaxy, every atom, every equation, every physical law, every living organism, every conscious thought, every discovery humanity has ever made, potentially another clue. The answer may have been in front of us for the entire history of our species. The question is, are we smart enough yet to pry open the grasp of the universe and discover what it contains? I don't claim that divine deduction has accomplished that with certainty. DDT is a speculative philosophical and probabilistic framework. It is not an established scientific theory, and it does not claim that God has been mathematically or empirically proven. The model can be challenged, the assumptions can be changed, the evidence can change, and there may be possibilities we haven't even imagined. That's not a weakness that should be hidden. It's part of the framework. Because the objective should never be to protect the conclusion. The objective should be to find the truth. So after considering the competing explanations currently included in divine deduction, after examining nothingness, eternal foundations, mathematical order, fine-tuning, consciousness, explanatory scope, parsimony, physics, Bayesian reasoning, and unknown alternatives, where do I currently believe the cumulative arrow points? Toward an eternal, intelligent foundation of reality. I call that foundation God. That is why my present conclusion is, God must have, not, God has been proven with a decimal, not, the cosmic coin has definitively landed for humanity, but rather, given the hypotheses, evidence, assumptions, and reasoning presently considered, I believe God is where the arrow points. And that's where your part of this theory begins. Don't simply believe my conclusion. Challenge it. Change the assumptions. Question the evidence. Attack the reasoning. Recalculate the model. Try to find something I've missed. Try to break it. Because if the theory is wrong, and if it survives serious challenges, I want to know that too. The universe holds the answer. Perhaps one day humanity will finally pry open its grasp. Perhaps one day, the cosmic coin will land for us. Until then, observe, question, calculate, reason, update, and follow the evidence, wherever it leads. The divine deduction theory. I'm not here to prove God with a decimal. I'm here to show where the arrow points. Now it's your turn. What does it point towards?
I'm just going to go through the website real quick. Like I said, if you want to check it out, just go check it out. There's way too much to it to like just completely go over. I'd have to do that separate because I'm trying to go play Overwatch. Noodle Baker. If mathematics can reveal something about physical reality before humanity has observed it, are we inventing mathematics or discovering a structure that was already embedded in reality? And if that structure was already there, why? Perhaps the deepest mystery isn't that mathematics works, it's that there is something mathematically ordered for mathematics to describe. So each of the possible hypotheses are being compared to what result the hypothesis produces. So these are the main six hypotheses, aside from if someone else are to create their own. But these are basically the only hypotheses that we could really actually care to use because it would basically solve the entire problem. Now, if someone else has a different hypothesis, they're going to have to do their hypothesis and their mathematical calculations by themselves. They're going to have to present that themselves. because I've done my job. I have presented the solution, and if they feel they can do a better job of providing a solution, well, by all means, be my guest. Throw your hypothesis out there. See if you can do a better job than me. I highly doubt it. So here are the results of all 6 hypotheses, and notice how the God hypothesis absolutely dominates the results as pointing to what must be the solution. You can disagree, but there's the math. I've presented it. I've been trying to explain it. I had to write it all down. I took 6 hours to get this all done. There it is. So this whole time I've been saying, I have the solution. I have the solution. It's like, I need to write this down and show it to everybody and explain it to everybody, because otherwise it's just like you're expecting to take my word for it. But look at the math. Look at the math. It's absolutely dominating the equation. Out of all of the possibilities that it could potentially be, God dominates it with, like, there's basically no question about it that it must be God. Feel free to disagree, but you're looking at the math and you wonder why the coin flip is getting ready to land, and he's going to say, congratulations, we have finally solved the solution. And anybody that didn't do the math correctly and, tried to say that I was incorrect, you're going to have God looking right at you and say, so Brian's incorrect, but why am I here to verify that his mathematical solution and formula is actually correct? So, yeah, explain that one to God. Explain that one to God when he comes and verifies my mathematical solutions. Now let's go over it. Step 5, but I want to look at this. Look at this. Step 4. I've been trying to put it into words until I finally created the website. It's a masterpiece. This is the holy grail of the holy grail. The conclusion illustrates. It's an illustrative model. Under these assumed priors and Bayes factors, the evidence points most strongly toward H1. Hypothesis 1 is presented to be the solution. It must be the solution. The result, the arrow points towards an eternal, intelligent creator. Important to understand, this is an illustrative, hypothetical model. The numbers are not empirical measurements. Change the assumptions, change the result. The truth is found by following the evidence. The goal is not to force the answer, but to follow the evidence where it leads. Update the model as knowledge grows. What does it point towards most? It is pointing towards hypothesis 1. Where does anybody get that hypothesis 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 even comes close? Nothing even comes close. Provide your mathematical solutions. If you have the answer, feel free to go do the math. You don't think I'm smart enough to do the math? Fine, go do it yourself. Don't just rely on everybody to take your word for it, because that's what all these atheists are hitting us with. Take our word for it. We're not going to take your word for it. Present your mathematical foundation. Present your hypothesis as a hypothesis. Don't just act like you have all the answers. Even I have presented, this is not a definitive 100% certainty. Although 99.9964% is dominating the results, we still have a small possibility that the other hypotheses may potentially be the answer. All I propose is that the arrow is not pointing in that direction for the most part. Where are these atheists getting that it's pointing in a different direction? Prove your hypothesis. Prove your mathematics. Show everybody how you're not just saying, that's my word for it. Oh, Star God TTV, did you become the Overwatch God yet? You know what? I'm actually getting really good, Star God TTV. I'm about to hit Emerald, but I've actually gotten really good. I'm getting ready to jump on Overwatch. I'm just presenting the greatest hypothesis and theory of all time right before God flips down here. The coin is getting ready to land. I can't believe I am the one that is providing the solution. And I've been telling everybody, I'm the richest man in the galaxy. I'm the richest man in the galaxy, because knowledge is power. And I realized I'm smarter than everybody. And I didn't know how to explain it. And then I finally, today, I was able to do it. And then God is going to prove my solution here very shortly. Probably right after World War III and the world blows up. But we're going to be jumping into Overwatch very, very shortly, because I'm not going over this entire website. There's way too much to go over. And feel free, go check it out on your own time. But I wanted to just check out these images, because these are mathematical theories. This is the Holy Grail. This is what everybody has been searching for. And I have presented it. Now let's look at the DDT scorecard. Comparing ultimate explanations of reality. Each hypothesis is scored from 0, very weak, to 10, very strong, on key explanatory dimensions. Now notice that each one of these hypotheses are fairly plausible. Now, I didn't say all of the other potential hypotheses don't have a little bit of plausibility behind it. So look at the scorecard. Notice, once again, hypothesis 1 dominates. It absolutely takes the lead. It absolutely dominates. Important notes. These scores reflect assumptions about how each hypothesis explains the evidence available today. Different people will weigh dimensions differently. New discoveries can change these assessments. For example, if God shows up, now hypothesis is a solid 10 of 10. That's what I'm saying. New discoveries can change these assumptions. But one thing's for sure, between hypothesis 2 through 6, we shall never expect any more evidence to become self-observant or to ever show up, because we're never going to know if God doesn't exist. So I theorize mathematically hypothesis 2 through 6 will infinitely regress down towards 0, absolute 0. Not to mention, if the coin are to land and God shows up at any moment, at any second, if God shows up, reveals himself, all the other hypotheses will completely drop to an absolute zero. So it's converging and diverging and reaching the point of zero infinitely faster and faster and faster. Although it does appear to be approaching zero very slowly, trust me, those numbers are dropping very quickly, especially the more that my theory is presented as scientific fact. Because this theory is the Holy Grail. I am what God wanted everybody to see. That somebody is going to figure it out. And I am the person. I've been trying to tell you guys. I don't know how you guys are ever going to believe this, but I figured it out. I've been trying to explain. I'm smarter than anyone could ever possibly understand. So let's continue. How to use this scorecard. 1. Challenge the scores. Weigh the weights. I believe it says recalculate. It's just a typo. Follow the evidence wherever it leads. The goal is not to defend a conclusion, but to discover which explanation the total evidence points towards most. Illustrative model, not empirical proof. This is a conceptual hypothetical framework to compare explanations. It is not a claim of scientific measurement or final truth. Reality may surprise us. Stay open. Keep updating. So each hypothesis I have evaluated. It has been evaluated through my theorem of DDT. So my theorem of DDT, this is where all of the possible answers are ranked mathematically. You can take my word for it, or you can go do the math yourself. Feel free to go check my math. Feel free to go do all the work yourself. And be sure to present it to me so I can check it out. I would love to see it. And this is just another alternative image of the scorecard. And we see that hypothesis 1 is the reigning champion. It's like the reigning champion. It's basically the exact same image, but there's just two different styles. So you might like one style better than the other. I figured that I would just include both of them because they were both very interesting. So let's continue testing the theory. Like I said, we're not going over this. There's way too much to go over. I am trying to go play Overwatch. You can go check it out on your own time. I encourage everybody to, because it will really bake your noodle. This is the Holy Grail. Open objections. The theory will not hide. So everything about DDT is on the website. The mathematical arrow. I will read this really quick. We can now define the central metaphor mathematically for each evidence item. I'm not going to read the formula. I don't even know how to read that formula. So we basically continue. For appropriately modeled evidence with dependency corrections where required. Then posterior odds equal E raised to A total. This gives mathematical meaning to the phrase, what does it point towards? Every valid piece of evidence contributes an arrow. Some arrows are tiny, some point backward, some cancel one another, some may eventually prove irrelevant. DDT asks for the resultant vector. Imagine evidence as vectors v1, v2, and so forth. Then, conceptually, v equals whatever. One observation points toward intelligent foundation. Another points toward natural necessity. Another has virtually zero magnitude. Another undermines a previous argument. The conclusion should follow the resultant 5 rather than whichever individual arrow we happen to prefer. This is the philosophical heart of divine deduction theory. Do not follow one argument, follow the total direction. So one reason that I named it DDT, divine deduction theory, because we're deducing what makes the most sense. So we're taking every possibility and deducing it down to what makes the most sense. So we have deduced it. It's a deduction. All right, so check out this image. The final resultant vector. The final resultant vector. All evidence, all reasoning, one resultant direction. What does the total evidence point towards? 1. The evidence arrows. Each arrow represents a major category of evidence we observe. Mathematical order, fine-tuning, hability. Okay, let me read the sub-branch there right below it. Mathematical order, elegant mathematics and consistent laws. Fine-tuning, habitability. Precise conditions allow complexity in life. Consciousness, subjective experience and awareness. Necessary existence. Something must exist rather than nothing. Explanatory scope. Explains the greatest amount with coherence. Parsimony, simplicity. Fewer assumptions for greater explanatory power. Physics and empirical consistency. Consistent with all established physics and observations. Unknown alternatives. Room for possibilities we have not yet discovered, or potentially theorized, or thought of, or conceived. So we present that everything must fall within a spectrum. So we conclude every possibility could potentially be a possibility. We don't rule out any possibility if it are to be a potential possibility. Not all arrows are equal. Strengths are based on Bayesian ways, likelihoods, and expert judgment under current knowledge. Now we continue to number 2 here. It says Bayesian synthesis funnel. That's that there. The evidence is evaluated, weighed, and combined. Weak evidence has less influence. Conflicting evidence can reduce the total. Everyone wants to see this in mathematical form. Well, this is as good as you're going to get it, really. Besides, if we have the mathematicians at Harvard sharpen it up. That's all we can really rely on and visualize and look at. So if they sharpen it up, they can potentially sharpen it up. But I've already laid down the main construct. It really can't. There's not much more sharper that it can get. It's already basically as good as it's really gonna get. I presented the smoking gun. I basically done all the work. This is an illustrative model, not empirical proof. Numbers are hypothetical and updated as knowledge grows. Number 3, competing hypotheses. Each hypothesis receives support or opposition from the evidence. Stronger support equals brighter. Weaker support equals dimmer. Hypothesis 1 is God, eternal intelligence. Hypothesis 2, eternal impersonal foundation. So we're basically, hypothesis 2 is the runner-up. It's either an intelligent source as the foundation, or an eternal source as the foundation without intelligence. So hypothesis 1 dictates it's an eternal source with intelligence. Hypothesis 2 is basically the opposite. It's an eternal source without intelligence. It's either most likely A or B, hypothesis 1 or hypothesis 2. But it doesn't rule out hypothesis 3, 4, 5, and 6 are potential runners-up as well. So hypothesis 3 is infinite self-contained reality, which is the third runner-up. The third most likely answer to what the universe holds to be the answer, because the universe itself does hold the answer. We just don't necessarily know the answer. It's like something inside of a box, and you just don't know what's inside the box unless the box is opened. So we can only hypothesize, well, what answer lies within the box. So the three top choices are hypothesis 1, 2, and 3. And now we see that hypothesis 4, 5, and 6 are really starting to get down there to be very improbabilistic. You wouldn't expect that that's what holds the answer to reality, but it potentially does hold that possibility. Hypothesis 4, the lowest possible answer contained within reality, the most least likely to be the answer is hypothesis 4. Absolute nothing. So the main reason hypothesis 4 is so low on the possibility spectrum is because you would expect, if absolute nothingness are the answer, well, then why doesn't nothing still exist? So basically, hypothesis 4 makes absolutely no sense. Hypothesis 5, simulation, derived reality, very low on the spectrum, about 50% likely as hypothesis 3. And then hypothesis 6 ranks very low, almost half of what hypothesis 5 presents could be the solution. So it keeps reducing by half, reducing by half, reducing by half. And then you have hypothesis 6, unknown. Current understanding. Basically, hypothesis 6 is open to the idea that there might be some other hypothesis we haven't yet theorized. So like I have tried to explain already, notice how hypothesis 1 is the reigning at the top of the spectrum. So I theorize that hypothesis 1 is going to converge infinitely towards 100%, while all other hypotheses will infinitely converge towards 0%. So this whole time, hypothesis 1 may have begun at like 50%, and then it just continually exponentially keeps converging towards infinitely 100%. So we've derived at these mathematical probabilities of where we are right now. So now that I've presented this theory, I am theorizing that hypothesis 1 is going to infinitely diverge towards 100%, faster and faster and faster, which is where I state God will show up basically because I have presented the solution. He will verify the solution and say, Brian has actually solved the great mystery of God through the scientific standpoint, which everyone is always demanding. Well, I want to know the science. I want to see the math. I want to see the science. And then God, he's basically getting ready to verify that this theory is correct. that's my hypothesis, which basically is tied to hypothesis 1. But it's still separate as its own hypothesis because it has nothing to do with the mathematics that I'm presenting in the actual theory. My hypothesis and theory is completely separate. It's its own claim, but it still ties into hypothesis 1 ultimately. So 4, the resultant vector, the total evidence points in the direction of the hypothesis with the greatest explanatory strength. God, eternal intelligence. So 1, 2, 3, all combined together. Now you're basically generating the ultimate arrow of what is it pointing towards the most? God. Current DDT hypothesis, strongest cumulative explanation under the stated assumptions. The conclusion is provisional. It will change if the evidence, assumptions, or understandings change. Like I said, I theorize hypothesis 1 is converging towards 100%, infinitely faster and faster and faster, while all the other hypotheses are basically converging towards 0% infinitely faster. Doesn't mean that one of these hypotheses won't start converging towards infinity or 100% as a potential outcome. We just don't necessarily know the outcome because I told you that the coin is still, it's like the coin is still spinning in the air. But that's why I'm saying, you guys, I just solved the greatest mystery of all time. That's why I'm like smarter than Einstein. And I've finally been able to prove it. So God must have. Now we don't state that it is the answer or solution. We state it must have. Okay, and read my conclusion. Here is my personal conclusion. Now I will go over this, but I'll do it kind of fast because, like I said, I'm trying to get on Overwatch. My conclusion on the DDT theory. After all, I did create the theory. I did summarize the theory. I did present the mathematics to the hypothesis. So everyone is going to want to see, well, what conclusion have I drawn? This is the conclusion that I have drawn and where everything points towards the most for me. Doesn't mean that the hypothesis is going to point towards some other direction for you. This is my conclusion. My conclusion is separate from your conclusion because everyone is entitled to their own conclusion, which is also what I've stated. Draw your own conclusion. What does it point towards most for you? Just because it points towards God the most for me doesn't mean it's going to point towards God the most for you. So my conclusion, the cosmic coin flip. One side represents God, eternal intelligence. The other, no ultimate intelligence. After following every path I can conceive, reducing the question to its deepest form and asking again and again what the total evidence points toward, I have arrived at my conclusion. But first, the paradox. Reality already contains the answer. It either is or is not. We are still trying to discover it. Not as a statement that I have mathematically proven God, not as a claim that humanity possesses absolute knowledge or the origin of existence, but as my conclusion about the explanation toward which the cumulative reasoning of the divine deduction theory points most strongly. And perhaps the best way to understand this entire theory is through one final paradox. Imagine the greatest coin flip in existence. Observe, reserve. Oh, wait. Obverse, reverse. Obverse and reverse. Sorry. God, eternal intelligence, the ultimate foundation of reality, reverse. No ultimate intelligence. God is not the ultimate foundation of reality. The coin has been thrown. In fact, metaphorically, it may have been thrown the instant existence became a question conscious beings could ask. So the coin may have been up in the air ever since we started to realize and contemplate what's going on. But from humanity's perspective, the coin has not yet landed. The metaphorical coin is not necessarily undecided. Humanity simply does not yet possess certainty about which side is true. We can see it spinning, we can study its trajectory, we can measure its rotation, we can examine the forces acting upon it, we can calculate which side appears increasingly likely to face upward. But until reality reveals enough information to settle the ultimate question, we cannot honestly say that we have watched the coin land. We observe, we calculate, we reason, we update, and we ask which way the coin appears to be falling. So another big part of my hypothesis is basically ultimately the coin will land, God will show up, or the coin will never land and we're never gonna know. It's either A or B. Either we're gonna find out or it's like we're never really gonna know. Plate X. The epistemic coin. The cosmic coin flip. Now let's look at the visualization of the cosmic coin flip. It's a big part of my theory. It's a big part of DDT. Reality already contains the answer. We are still trying to discover it. Bayesian updating, evidence streams, mathematical order, fine-tuning, consciousness, necessary existence, explanatory scope, parsimony, physics consistency, unknown alternatives, God, eternal intelligence. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, no ultimate intelligence. The coin is still spinning. We observe, we measure, we reason, we update. The truth is already true. Either there is an ultimate intelligence or there is not. Reality already knows. We are trying to know. We do not claim certainty. We follow the evidence wherever it leads. The truth is not hidden because it does not exist. It may be hidden because we have not yet learned how to see it. Yo, little Kiwi on Twitch chat. You lost it. What the hell are you talking about? Go read the website. The coin is already in the air. One face is eternal intelligence. The other is no ultimate intelligence. Humanity stands on the dark curve of Earth, watching. The truth is not necessarily undecided. Our knowledge of it is. The gold face towards us reads God, eternal intelligence. The shadowed reverse reads no ultimate intelligence. Around the coin, evidence streams, the Bayesian formulas try to predict the trajectory they cannot yet force to the table. A small rising curve on the right is not a proof. It is the shape of updating. Belief moving as evidence accumulates. Still short of a landing. The title is the knots the whole conclusion depends on. The cosmic coin has not landed for us. Reality already contains the answer. We are still trying to discover it. Our uncertainty is not a property of the universe. It is a property of our position underneath the spin. The paradox. Reality already contains the answer. Our uncertainty does not create uncertainty within reality itself. The universe holds the answer. Whatever ultimately explains existence is already part of the truth about reality. So whatever's there is already there. Nothing's going to change what is or isn't there. We are smart enough yet to Are we smart enough yet to pry open its grasp? So look at this next illustration. The universe holds the answer. Are we smart enough yet to pry open its grasp? What could it possibly be? So remember, the universe is holding the answer, but it's like no one has access to know or visualize or actually see what is the answer. But we can hypothesize through mathematics, or my hypothesis or my theory, DDT, which basically gives you an X-ray vision through what the answer is holding. So with DDT, we basically can now see the answer. This is the masterpiece of the conclusion, not a picture of God, and that is the point. Two hands made of galaxies, nebula, and space-time are closed around a light we cannot identify. Earth is a speck beneath them. The question on the plate is the question of the whole theory. Read the hands before the title. They are not a deity. They are the universe itself, personified only as a grasp, the observable cosmos holding something we have not been allowed to see. Between the fingers, gold light escapes. We are not shown what produces it. Equations, DNA, atoms, a brain, a telescope, Maxwell, Schrödinger, E equals MC square drift around the grasp as clues, not as keys that have already turned. The human figure on the mountain is the scale of the problem. We live inside the thing we are trying to open. The plate asks whether we are smart enough yet to pry the fingers apart. It does not answer if God were painted inside those hands. The mystery would already be cheated. The power of the image is that we do not know what is being held. Mathematics, physics, cosmology, consciousness, probability, philosophy. Every discovery may loosen another finger. What could it possibly be? The universe does not have to wait for humanity to solve the question. Whatever the truth is, it is already the truth. Either an ultimate intelligence exists or it does not. Either reality ultimately arose from, depends on, or exists within something mind-like, or it does not. If G equals God is the ultimate foundation of reality, then under ordinary classical logic, the proposition is true or false, even while we do not know which. That distinction changes everything. The mystery is not necessarily whether reality has an answer. The deeper mystery may be, are we capable of discovering the answer reality already holds? Imagine the truth locked inside the universe itself. Every galaxy, every physical law, every mathematical relationship, every particle, every living organism, every conscious thought, every discovery humanity has ever made, they are pieces of an enormous cosmic puzzle. We have spent thousands of years pulling at the fingers of reality, attempting to pry open its grasp and glimpse what it has been holding since before humanity existed. And perhaps that was always the real challenge. Not whether there is an answer, but are we smart enough yet to find it? Maybe mathematics is one finger, physics another, cosmology another, consciousness another, logic another, probability another, philosophy another. And every time humanity makes another discovery, another finger loosens. We discovered that Earth was not the center of everything. We discovered galaxies beyond our own. We penetrated matter and discovered an astonishing microscopic world. We discovered the molecular machinery underlying life. We discovered that nature can repeatedly be described through mathematics, and eventually reality produced something extraordinary. A part of the universe capable of looking back at the universe and asking why it exists. The universe became capable, through conscious observers, of investigating itself. And eventually we arrived at the question behind all the other questions. Why is there something rather than nothing? The final move of DDT. What does it point towards? We do not need to pretend the coin has already landed to study its trajectory. We ask which explanations remain logically viable. Which assumptions are necessary? Could absolute nothing produce something? Must something ultimately be fundamental? Why does reality possess mathematical structure? Why can complexity arise? Why does consciousness exist? Does an impersonal foundation explain these observations better? Does an intelligent foundation explain them better? What alternatives have we overlooked? And then, what does all of it point towards? What remains a conclusion drawn from the framework? Not an experimentally established measurement. The cosmic coin is still spinning from our perspective. But divine deduction theory proposes that we can study the motion of that coin and continually update where we believe it is headed. That is so funny. Where we believe it's headed towards heads. It's headed towards the coin is getting ready to land. If the coin lands, that means God shows up. In Bayesian language, prior belief plus evidence yields an updated belief. Then that postulator meets new evidence again and again. The question becomes whether that sequence ultimately converges, and toward what? Does increasing knowledge drive our confidence toward God, toward an impersonal foundation, toward some completely unexpected answer? That is the mathematical form of watching the cosmic coin fall. So we're basically watching the coin getting ready to land or basically never going to land. So we already went over this. We can just kind of go right past it. What if the coin never lands for us? Suppose God is not the ultimate explanation. Suppose there is no creator waiting beyond our universe. Suppose reality is ultimately impersonal. What final event necessarily arrives to announce, humanity, you were correct, there is no God? Perhaps none. That's why I dictate, well, if God doesn't exist, it's like we're never really going to know, the coin's never going to land. It's just going to be like the coin is just always spinning through the air and it never lands. Humanity could disappear without ever obtaining absolute confirmation. The universe could continue without observers. There would be no requirement for reality to provide us with the final answer. In that sense, metaphorically, the coin could remain in the air forever. From humanity's perspective, not because reality itself lacks an answer, but because we may never receive enough information to observe which side is facing upward. That is the extraordinary asymmetry at the heart of the cosmic coin flip. But what if it lands? That's basically what I propose is going to happen. Suppose God actually is the ultimate intelligence behind existence. Then there exists at least the conceptual possibility of something radically different. Revelation. Not another philosophical argument, not another equation, not another debate, not another person saying, I believe. An event so unambiguous that the question changes forever. Basically, there is no more question to the question because the question has been revealed. Something humanity collectively witnesses. Something that transforms belief into observation. In religious language, one might call such an event the return of God. If anything resembling that ultimate revelation ever occurred, unmistakably, then metaphorically, the cosmic coin would finally hit the table. The spinning would stop. The debates would change. The probabilities would become secondary. Humanity would no longer merely ask whether God exists. Humanity would confront an entirely different question. What now? The great revelation. And this is the riddle I believe humanity has actually been trying to solve. The answer was never necessarily hidden because there was no answer. The answer may have been hidden because we had not yet learned how to extract it. Reality surrounds us. We are made from it. We observe it, we measure it, we describe it mathematically, and yet the ultimate explanation remains concealed behind the very universe we are attempting to explain. It is almost as though humanity was handed a locked box while living inside the box. The clues are written on its walls. The equations are embedded in its structure. And the creatures attempting to discover who or what built the box are themselves composed of material from inside it. That is the paradox. By the way, when I finish wrapping this up within like 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to end the stream, go make some macaroni, and then I'm going to restart it and launch Overwatch. So if you're here to watch me play Overwatch and you're like kind of getting bored of this, well, wait for the stream to end and I'm going to relaunch it and I'm just going to jump right into Overwatch. The universe holds the answer. The question is whether humanity can ever pry open its grasp and behold the great revelation. The coin is still spinning. Maybe tomorrow brings another clue. Maybe another century transforms physics. Maybe consciousness contains something we have completely misunderstood. Maybe deeper mathematics reveals that reality could never have been otherwise. Maybe we discover our entirely new category of existence. Or perhaps something happens that humanity could never mistake for anything else. Until then, we calculate, we observe, we reason, we question, we challenge our own assumptions, and we follow the resultant arrow wherever it leads. Because the purpose of divine deduction theory is not to force the cosmic coin onto the side we want, it is to ask, which way does the coin appear to be falling? And after following the reasoning as far as I presently can, my conclusion is it points towards God. Not 100% mathematical proof, not absolute knowledge, but the explanation that within my framework presently emerges as the strongest candidate for the ultimate foundation behind existence. All right, if you find this theory interesting, share it, debate it, challenge it, and send it to someone who will disagree with you. I have all of the tools. You can use it on the website to share it. All you got to do is push the button. You can copy and paste it directly onto Facebook. All right. What does it all point towards? With the current assumptions and reasoning of divine deduction theory, my conclusion is that eternal intelligence presently provides the strongest cumulative explanation. God. God must have. This is the conclusion of the divine deduction theory, not a claim that God has been scientifically or mathematically proven. And so the final statement of the divine deduction theory is simultaneously a conclusion and a challenge. The universe already knows the cosmic coin is still spinning for us. Humanity is still trying to see which side will face up. And my calculation points toward one answer. God must have. When the coin lands, let's take a look at this. One day, the question may become an answer. Until then, follow the evidence. What does it point towards? Another great image to throw in the school book. The last plate is not a photograph of a rival. The coin still bears a question mark. Behind it, light tears through the sky, deliberately ambiguous. It might be God. It might be revelation. It might only be the moment the question changes. Until that day, the surrounding equations remain what they have always been. Relativity, quantum mechanics, DNA, a brain, Bayes' theorem, posterior odds, the evidence we actually have, the figure on the ridge is still looking up. The earth is still dark except for our lights. The footer still asks what it points towards. Place this image after the conclusion, not before it. DDT does not claim the coin has hit the table. It claims that one day the question may become an answer, and that until then, the only honest work is to follow the evidence. The burst of light is a possibility, not a report. Perhaps the greatest discovery humanity could ever make is not another object somewhere inside the universe. Perhaps it is discovering why there is a universe to search in at all. One day, the question may become an answer. Until then, follow the evidence. What does it point towards? This is the footer of the website. And that is my conclusion. I'm sure that has baked everybody's noodle to the bone. I am basically done. I just wanted to show you the About Me section, because I included the About Me section. Creator of the divine deduction theory. That's me. I'm the one speaking. Independent thinker, working across philosophy, mathematics, probability, cosmology, consciousness, and the nature of reality. The universe already holds the answer. The question is whether we're capable of discovering it. About me. My name is Brian Tabar, and I am the creator of the divine deduction theory, DDT. I am the independent thinker fascinated by some of the oldest and most difficult questions humanity has ever confronted. Why does anything exist at all? Could absolute nothing have ever existed? What if anything has always existed? Why does reality follow mathematical laws? How did consciousness emerge within the universe? And ultimately, did God create everything? I am especially interested in problems where we may not yet possess enough information for absolute certainty, but where deductive reasoning and probability can still help us determine which direction the available evidence points. That idea becomes the foundation of the divine deduction theory. Why I created DDT. For most of human history, the question of God has often been presented as a battle between two positions. God exists or God does not exist. I became increasingly interested in a third question. What does the evidence point towards? I wasn't satisfied with simply beginning with belief and attempting to prove it, but I also wasn't satisfied with beginning with disbelief as assuming that anything unexplained would eventually receive a non intelligent explanation. Instead, I wanted to approach the problem as a gigantic deductive and probabilistic puzzle. What are the possible explanations for existence? Which can reasonably be eliminated? Which require additional assumptions? Which explain more of what we observe? Which create new unanswered questions? And when we combine everything we currently know, which explanation emerges as the strongest? That became DDT, the cosmic coin flip. One of my favorite ways of describing the theory is the cosmic coin flip. Imagine the ultimate question represented by a coin. One side is God, eternal intelligence. The other is no intelligence. From humanity's perspective, the coin is still spinning. That does not necessarily mean reality itself is undecided. Whatever the truth is, it is already true. Either an ultimate intelligence exists or it does not. The universe already holds the answer. We simply haven't necessarily discovered it yet. So instead of pretending that we have watched the cosmic coin land, DDT attempts to examine its trajectory. We study physics, mathematics, consciousness, necessary existence, and cosmology. We compare competing explanations. We use probability. We change assumptions. And with every new piece of information, we ask again, what does it point towards? The universe holds the answer. Imagine the answer to the greatest mystery of humanity has ever encountered locked within the grasp of the universe itself. We know reality exists. We know something rather than nothing exists. And whatever ultimately explains that fact is already embedded within the truth of reality. Humanity has spent thousands of years slowly attempting to pry open the universe's grasp. Mathematics opens one finger, physics opens another, cosmology opens another, logic another, probability another, consciousness may open another. Every discovery reveals another piece of the puzzle. Perhaps the ultimate question was never whether reality contains an answer. Perhaps the question has always been, are we smart enough yet to discover it? My philosophy: there is one principle I want DDT to follow above everything else. I don't believe we should decide the answer first and then search for evidence that agrees with us. We should construct the strongest competing explanations we can, challenge our own assumptions, and follow the total evidence wherever it leads. That means a legitimate framework must allow evidence to move in either direction. If new discoveries strengthen impersonal explanation of reality, DDT should acknowledge them. If an argument for God fails, it should be removed. If two arguments actually represent the same evidence, they shouldn't be counted twice. If one unknown explanation becomes plausible, it should enter the competition. And if evidence strengthens the hypothesis of an eternal intelligence, that should count too. The goal shouldn't be, how can we prove what I already believe? The goal should be, if I follow every arrow, where does the resultant arrow actually point? Why mathematics and probability? Some questions cannot currently be reduced to a laboratory experiment. That doesn't necessarily mean rational comparison becomes impossible. Bayesian reasoning gives us a powerful conceptual framework. In simple terms, what did we believe before? Plus, how expected is this evidence if the hypothesis is true? Equals what we should believe after seeing the evidence. That process can happen repeatedly as humanity learns more. DDT attempts to apply this philosophy to the ultimate question of existence, not to manufacture certainty, but to determine direction. Where is the evidence moving us? My current conclusion, after following the reasoning as far as I currently can, my personal conclusion is that the cumulative evidence points most strongly toward an eternal, intelligent foundation of reality. I call that foundation God, and that is why the concluding statement of my theory is God must have. There is an extremely important distinction between saying this is where my reasoning currently leads me and science has mathematically proven God exists. I am making the first statement. I'm not making the second. Important disclaimer. The divine deduction theory is a speculative, philosophical, and probabilistic framework created by Brian Tabar. It is not an established scientific theory, nor has it been scientifically demonstrated that mathematics can currently assign an objective numerical probability to God's existence. Any numerical sources, Bayesian examples, probability estimates, hypothesis rankings, or mathematical models presented throughout DDT should be understood as they are labeled. Illustrative models based upon stated assumptions, not experimentally measured probabilities of God's existence. DDT is intended to encourage curiosity rather than certainty, investigation rather than dogma, debate rather than dismissal, all and above all following the evidence wherever it leads. The theory is meant to be challenged. I don't want people simply reading DDT and saying, I agree. I also don't want people simply saying, I disagree. I want people to attack the actual reasoning. Show me the hypothesis I missed. Challenge a probability. Challenge an assumption. Find a contradiction. Present a better explanation. Most importantly, if you disagree, please present a better explanation. Show where an evidential arrow should point in another direction, and then rerun the reasoning. If an idea cannot survive serious criticism, it should be changed. It should change. If it survives increasingly powerful attempts to disprove it, then perhaps we have discovered something worth investigating further. Follow the conversation live. Okay, this is just promoting my live streams. I'm not sitting around contemplating the origins of existence all day. When I'm not staring into the cosmic abyss wondering why anything exists, you can catch me live playing Overwatch, gaming, doing IRL streams, talking philosophy, debating ideas, and occasionally descending into complete madness, which is where you have arrived at the moment. I'm all over the fucking place. I'm like not in just one fucking place, guys. I'm very hyper ADD. I'm like 1 second I'm doing one thing, the next I'm doing another. I cannot sit still. Share the theory. If you find the divine deduction theory interesting, share the website. Discuss it. Challenge it. Debate it. Try to break it. Send it to someone who believes in God. Send it to someone who doesn't. The objective isn't for everyone to reach the same conclusion. The objective is to get more people seriously asking the question. The universe holds the answer. We are still trying to discover it. And until the cosmic coin finally lands for humanity, there is one question I believe we should continue asking. What does it point towards? Brian Tabar, creator of the divine deduction theory. Share it, break it, live it, love it, hate it, do what you will. I have presented to you the greatest theory of mankind. Get ready to call it in the air, heads or tails. God exists or God doesn't. You already know what I'm betting on. I'm telling you, that coin is getting ready to land. I am a big part of the reason that coin is getting ready to land. You can take my word for it, whether you want to or not. Go do your own research. Go rediscover the math yourself. Recreate the mathematics. Do the math yourself. Or simply follow DDT and take it as a blessing from God, because I am presenting this that God has been waiting for this to be presented, and it's going to be right before he shows up. Right before he shows up, I have presented the ultimate solution, and I'm a part of the main reason he is getting ready to show up, because he is proud of my work. And that is going to wrap it up. I'm going to end the stream, and I'm going to go make some macaroni and get on Overwatch. Enjoy.